Hey, what's going on, everyone? Check out what's coming up this week on Legacies.
I went in there, I sat down, I lit it, and I looked around in that room, and I was like, no, I need to stop this.
I'm not one of these people.
Ridiculous.
I've been wanting to get on this show for so long, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
The check you sent over really helped. So
That really helps. Thank you very much.
Honestly, it's the same thing that it's been since day one. I still can't believe that this is my job and this is what I get to do.
Let's see. I'd love to see that happen. And if it did, it came from us. It came from us. This idea came from us. Hey, welcome to Legacies, everyone. I'm your host, Tom Ritchie, joined by Mr. Wesley Bowles. Wes, good morning. See, you got your ears lowered, is what we used to say back in the day. That's what my grandpappy used to say.
Ears low. Oh, haircut. Yeah.
What is it now? High and tight.
High and tight. That's what
High
I go
and
for.
tight.
Just to ask for a 0 to a 1, high and tight, and a little off the top.
Didn't get a Brazilian blowout.
No, I don't have the facilities for that, unfortunately. I did in my high school days. I had the shoulder length. I had looked like fucking Prince Charming. But
Hold on, I need my coffee. You look like Prince Charming.
I did. That. I had the shoulder length, and it flicked. I had the hockey hair with the
find
with
a
the flick
photo,
up.
please.
I have one. I'll put a photo up.
Put a photo up.
I've got it.
I'll tell you what. I'll send you my flock of seagulls hairdo from my grade 9, grade 10 high school photo.
Sometimes
we'll put them side by side.
Sometimes when people tell you I used to have this haircut, you go, I can't really picture it, but that I can picture 100%.
Oh, dude, I went through my phases, right? Vanilla Ice, and this was Flock of Seagulls, which is big in the late '80s. Whew, I'm dating myself now.
This picture I'll post to myself though with the long hair. You could tell that I was a high school drummer. You could just tell by looking at this picture that I'm a drummer.
I don't know what was I. I was a high school dropout. I fucking hated school, man. I hated it. I just could not conform to, you need to sit here and learn this. Eventually, I just said, fuck it. Went and worked, and years later, went and wrote my GED. I found the fast track. That was the fast track.
Yeah, I never remember. I remember, I think, 2 or 3 standout teachers for me where I was like, I remember those classes vividly, and I remember actually learning, genuinely helpful stuff for me. I think about all the rest of my teachers, and again, I know, teachers aren't paid well, man.
Hold on.
No, but here's the thing:
they weren't. They weren't. Paid well.
I know what teachers go through, and we're going through. So, but it was like a lot of them. They weren't enthused. They weren't. I wasn't able to get.
It's like anything, right? You go to hella panel, some sort of talk. Back in my advertising days, we'd go to a lot of ad week, and there'd be a week-long event where it's panels and people talking about their campaigns. If you don't have some sort of charismatic individual at the front of a class or on stage, that shit is dry and boring. I have maybe 2 teachers that stand out from my, school days, I'll say, because I didn't spend a lot of time in high school. But that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
And, the curriculums, I just don't agree with our fucking curriculums. I have a lot of trouble with them. I do not think they teach enough in accounting and budgeting at all. They do not teach, and I think they do this on purpose. I don't think they teach us enough about politics and understanding how the Canadian politics scene works and how that works with the U.S. politics. And I think that we should touch on that. Geography, sure, I get it. I get history. I get these things.
Well, that's just it. Is I remember learning about any form of politics was in history class,
and it was always biased.
Right. Well,
always.
I don't
for
know.
me, it was always biased. That teacher.
But what I'm saying is learning about government in a history class. Sure, it's important to understand how we got to where we are. But yeah, you're right. There was nothing on modern day.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's my son's rounding into grade 12 now, and he's a smart kid. I mean, really smart, but hates school. He's very much like me, and I'm like, this day and age, bud, it's a sentence. I'm sorry to say. Sorry to all our teachers, all our curriculum admins, but it's a sentence as far as I'm concerned, because there should be certain skills and understanding. That's why I come back to the budgeting. They don't teach any of that. If they do, it's very little. Social sciences, that sort of stuff. politics. It's, again, very biased, typically from the teacher that's teaching it. But the vast majority of that stuff, you will not remember. You just won't.
No,
and especially now, everything's available like on a smart device.
I think looking back, the most I pulled from school was social skills. I met people that pulled me out of my shell, made me kind of, the personality traits that I am into today and stuff like that. And I think that's the most I took from it. I still have those friends today, right? So, I mean, from all that, it was good. And I still have great memories from that, right? I go back, the old question, would you go back? And in a heartbeat, that was the best time. Like,
really? Wow.
Oh, yeah. That post, that kind of last year.
A drummer in high school. Yeah, you're going to go back.
Yeah, that last 2 years of high school and maybe the last 2 years of high school and the 2 years maybe just after. That little period, there was a sweet spot of I had a job, I had some money coming in, I had minimal responsibilities.
Oh,
it was like a golden peak era of it's just awesome.
I don't know, the minimal responsibilities does not, like I've had those since, like I moved out when I was 15 on my own apartment, which was probably conducive to why I was dropping out and not attending class, but I was working and doing a lot of things kids that age should not be doing. I also had an older friend group, so probably not the best influence, but friends with all of them still today. I see we have our Legacies special.
I just noticed that in the background.
It's all right, we can roll with it.
No,
we
so
love
I started
all those individuals.
I started with the first one, and then the TV's not set to repeat. So it's moving over to the next video in the file, and that's
those
so
guys,
here's your free promotion for the day, guys. There you go.
Stewart Farms, Weejit, Saveo. You just keep getting more. Don't worry, we'll send you an invoice. It's fine. And of course, Mendo got a chance to catch up with buddy Jay yesterday. Sounds like he had some good time over holidays, visiting plenty of football games. His son's going places. I don't know if you've talked to Jay about that.
Yeah, he mentioned something about his team winning the championship or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he's really killing it. So
we'll keep an eye on that. He's a big Chiefs fan too.
Yeah.
Which Chiefs and fucking Eagles again. I'm not a big football fan. I watch the Super Bowl because that's what people do. But I'm like, what the fuck? Is this rigged or what?
I don't know.
As long as we don't have to see Taylor Swift at another fucking Super Bowl.
it'll sell some tickets, that's for sure, this game. But,
I'm sure the Swifties are happy. I caught some news. Obviously, we've talked about this before. We won't even go into all the shit that Trump's doing in the U.S. Like, holy shit. But we'll see what flies and what doesn't fly. He's pissing a lot of people off, but also making a lot of people happy and delivering on promises. But I've been paying particular attention to what's going on in Canada. And, I do not align with Chrystia Freeland by any means. Carney, I don't know. We'll see. Career politician. Everyone says Poilievre is a career politician. But what I caught was, so Poilievre apparently will not be getting any more spy agency information. Now, let's tone this down a little bit. Canada's CSIS, the CSIS, is our CIA-ish, okay? I don't know how involved in the world political scene and, whatever CIA-type operatives would do in the U.S. But anyways, there's apparently no direct channel of information going to be fed to him anymore. I like this. And I'm not saying I like Poilievre. I don't like any politician, you know me. But he will not, I forget what it is, like take an oath that he will swear to secrecy. So meaning whatever information he's fed, he won't use that. He won't talk about it publicly. He won't talk about it with constituents. He just won't talk about it. And he's like, no, that's not, that I can respect. It's like, you're going to get, now I get there's sensitive information, probably don't want to share with the general public, and let him discern. But he's not buying into that bullshit by the sounds of it. So, I don't know. We'll see. Who's our next prime minister, Wes?
At this point, I don't.
Don't say you don't care, because I know you care.
It's not that I don't care, but it's like
I know it's rough, man.
It's hard to see any path where you're like, anything I do makes any. Is there
change anything positive to come out of any of this? Yeah. Like, what the fuck? Oh my god. Did you see that? I think it was Shane Morris shared a video with me. It was a Saturday Night Live skit where it was a podcast doctor's visit. So did you see that? I posted that.
No.
So it was a skit, obviously, and they're running a podcast, but they're doctor office visits. And I'm thinking, hey, maybe we could sign people up for the Mendo Medical, and we'll just bring them onto the podcast. So, what ailments are you facing? There was a funny bit in there where it was blurred out, and obviously he's like, so he's talking to the patient, but I guess guest. He's like, he's holding his nuts, and he's like, turn your head and cough, and he's asking other stupid questions as well. And hey, there's a revenue stream. We can funnel patients, members into Mendo by way of the podcast.
I mean, yeah, if we can get around the potential HIPAA,
Fuck it.
HIPAA issues, maybe. Patient data and all,
We're not worried about that. First, middle, and last name, please. Okay. Date of birth. All right. Well, you got psoriasis. Okay. What else? Trouble sleeping. Okay. PTSD. No problem. That's fine. I'm sure HIPAA's fine with that.
Yeah. 35-gram day allotment.
Yeah. You said you wanted to grow at home, right? Yeah. Okay. No problem. 100 grams a day. Yeah. That was the funniest thing back in those days when myself and friends were going through to get MMARs, right? So in those days, it wasn't just online clinic. It was by way of a lawyer, unless you knew the doctor. And then they would set up the appointment and all your paperwork and everything with the doctor. And the doctor would go through what's your issues. Really, they know what's going on, right? And you'd walk out. Some of my friends were walking out with 25, 35 gram day allotments, which is a direct representation of how many. So per gram per day was like 5 plants. So if you got 5 grams per day, you got to grow 25 plants. So some of these people were walking out with 25, 35. Derek Pedro, actually, the story behind this, I'd love to get him on sometime. So he was an early MMAR guy, which eventually became American. So he had a facility. We'll say it was gray. I don't like to say black market when I'm referring to other individuals. But he had like the largest gram per day allotment ever granted by a doctor. And they challenged the doctor and him on it. And he said, well, I make teas or what, I forget the exact story, but he actually went in to this panel where he had to prove how he was extracting, basically, so taking the trichomes off the bud and how he was going about using that. But I want to say his per gram or daily allotment per gram was like 130, 135, something like that.
Is that the same person Kirk Tissot was talking about where they were making tea, or is that a different case?
No, that's a different case, but it was very similar.
Yeah, they were proving why tea was effective or whatever, why
right.
it was, okay, yeah. So it's a different person.
It's a different person, but basically that led to, well, the opening, I think, they were one of the first, and it was a makeshift facility, right? There was nothing extremely special about it. But Derek went on to, he's done a ton of different pheno hunts and moved some genetics into the market. So, a pioneer for sure. Anyways, our friend Ian Scott over at Plantlife, I get this box. I'm like, it says Brew House on it. I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Okay.
Brew House. You remember he was busting my chops about my Canucks hat because he's a good old Edmonton boy. So he sent over a Plantlife Oilers themed hat, flat brim. Thank you, sir. I reached out to him and said, thank you.
Snapback or is it fullback?
It's a snapback. It's a snapback. No one would be able to guess the size of this melon. I might be able to get close to it, but it's cool. It's the Oilers blue and orange.
Really is that puff print on the front?
Yeah. It's gorgeous. And
was the
last
book
but not least?
Was the book? It is
Dylan Bruck. Yeah. So this is the Budtender's Guide to the Galaxy. Oh, dude, this is really wild. I can't wait to get into it. Canadian cannabis first impressions, and it goes through all the different strains. You remember Ian said 1 gram per, I don't know if it was per day, but 1 gram at a time through a volcano.
Yeah.
So he goes through like
I'll be honest, I was not prepared for that to come as a full paperback. I thought it was just going to send you a PDF printout.
Yeah, no, he sent the book. It's signed. Woohoo! This is a sign from Dylan. Very nice. Thank you. I didn't even get a chance to open it yet. With a nice note, but observations, first impressions, cultivar product information. So he goes through the type, effect, legacy name, lineage, the cannabinoids, terpenes. This is just wild.
Can you hold up a page so I can
reference.
see what the inside looks like?
Yeah. Let me do this. This one, does that one work if I do it here?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like a reference guide almost, and it takes you through all the various, and for me, one of the things that I always got very, very frustrated with, apologies, is how it's just the bastardization of all the different cultivars or strain names. Like, the vast majority of this happens by accident. right? When you crossbreed, you accidentally get a male in there, it pollinates, cross pollinates into the female, and now all of a sudden you've got seeds. What do you do with the seeds? Well, you can either scrap them and scrap the entire crop, or you can harvest those seeds and now you've got a new cultivar, and then you have to rename it. So I get how a lot of it happens, but I've always loved where you can trace back the lineage, especially if you can get to the original land race. There was a show, I don't know if it still exists, it was called Strain Hunters. This group of individuals, I think there was some controversy behind it, but regardless of that, they would go to different regions, and they did visit St. Vincent and the Grenadines. As you know, I've been there. I've worked with the MCA and did a bunch of work down there. But it was just cool to see them in the fields talking about original land races and what those have become. So anyways, very cool. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Dylan. Appreciate it. I will get into that even further. And I will rock the Plantlife hat, of course.
Yeah, it's a nice hat. Yeah.
Of course, today's Legacies hat, but I mean, I'm getting fucking hat overload. There isn't enough days in the year. You can see, in honor of our guest today, I've got a shirt for you as well, and an ashtray. You don't see ashtrays very often anymore. But Great White North Growers 514 is one of their brands. They sent over this hat. I don't know why I didn't wear it. But anyways, I got the 514 on.
Speaking of ashtrays.
Made in Montreal.
Speaking
of ashtrays, what do you got? Oh, what do you got?
I got this is the fucking nicest ashtray.
Wait a second.
I haven't even
hearing of this.
I haven't even used it yet. It's been sat on my shelf for a while. I haven't used it yet.
Who'd you get that from?
This is a raw ashtray. Well, here's the thing. It was supposed to be a Christmas gift because I pointed it out to my girlfriend when I was in a dispensary once, and then she went and got it for me for Christmas. And then in the meantime, because she shops, a couple months out, I went out and bought it myself. So. Ruined that Christmas gift, but anyway.
Way to go! Don't you know? You don't, especially around Christmas. You do not show interest in anything. Oh, that's gorgeous.
So this is like huge.
Raw just won.
This is
that crystal?
Yeah, it's like crystal, shiny.
Wow!
It weighs like a metric ton. It's insane. Super nice.
I don't have a lot of use for an ashtray. Like I don't smoke inside. Actually, with the colder weather, I haven't been smoking at all. I just vape. Still on that wild card extracts with VCC collab.
Are you?
Oh,
yeah.
It's fucking incredible stuff. Yeah. I don't have a need for an ashtray. I still think back to the old days of when you could smoke in a bar. I don't know if you were around for those days, but those stinky fucking ashtrays.
I remember the transitionary period where you would go into Tim Hortons and they'd have that cornered off glass section for smokers.
It reminds me of Bingo.
In the Tim Hortons.
Bingo used to do that. The Bingo. So I didn't, but all my friends growing up worked at the Bingo parlor. We went through that, and there'd be this huge. It was almost the smoking area was larger than the non-smoking area, and it was all cordoned off with that glass, like you say, or plexiglass. And then it just over time got just fucking disgustingly yellow and nicotine stained.
I think one of those experiences was my last point, or close to my last point, where I was like, yeah, I really should stop smoking. I went through, because they still have it today, I had a layover in Atlanta airport. And
they have a vestibule thing to smoke in, didn't they?
Yeah, in Terminal 1 or 3, they have a glass vestibule. And here's the thing, it's like a room in the middle, so everyone walking by can see.
I've been in it.
Inside.
I remember this one.
Yeah. So I went in it and I was like, oh man, I could really use a smoke. And I went in there, I sat down, I lit it, and I looked around in that room and I was like, I need to stop this.
I'm not one of these people. I do not need the secondhand smoke, let alone the firsthand smoke. I'm done. I remember that because we were coming back from a cruise somewhere. I think it was out of Puerto Rico. We had a stopover in Atlanta, and I'm like, I need a fucking smoke. I need to smoke bad. And it just so happened, I'm like, oh yeah, Atlanta knows where it's at. They're still allowing smoking in some capacity.
Yeah. No, that was
anyways, so listen, one of the things I really respect. So we had Chris Jones on Cannabis Express, and obviously he's got Ontario, and he's been branching into New Brunswick. Notice through Stratcann, where we get most of our news. We don't need to scour anywhere anymore. We just go to Stratcann. Cannabis MB has an RFQ for 4 more stores. I really like this model. I don't know their weighting system. I don't know how they, assign these stores, anything like that. I wish Ontario did things a little bit differently. I really do. I think that you would see more success, and I'll come to one of the reasons why I'm saying this, and I'm sure all the indies will be celebrating this, but I love that there's an RFQ process. Um, I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but Ontario with fumbling that ball down the field multiple times, right, to what we live in now, which has led to, and I don't know exactly why, but we're seeing True North, or the Vancor Group, has filed a CCAA against its holdings, which would be True North, 888. I think there's an accessory company or something in there. It sounds like reading the article and what's going on is there's some discrepancy or some infighting going on amongst the executive level or the ownership. Now, in this case, Vancor, or one of the subsidiaries, they mortgage and own the properties, like 27 or 28 of them.
So it's like the McDonald's model.
It is. Now, little early in cannabis, I'm a real estate guy. I love real estate. If you can buy real estate, fucking buy real estate, right? But in an unknown, new, immature industry, I don't know if I'd be staking claim to property and then putting retail in it. So, True North, they have 48 locations, 250 plus employees. Who do we care for? Obviously the employees. Or I think it's actually more. It's closer to 285 employees.
Yeah.
Will they shutter? I don't know. I don't know a lot about True North. I've been into a couple of the stores. I can say this, they suck at their email marketing, because I've signed up multiple times. I get nothing.
There are not a lot of great. Again, I've been in several retail stores. I've handed my email in multiple times, and there are not a lot of great email campaigns.
That is such a lost opportunity, man. It's such a lot. Like, I'm not near a Stoked. I'm signed up for the Stoked, and I know we love Unstoked a lot, right? And for good reason. I mean, they're good operators. They take care of their staff. Lisa's incredible. Francesco's incredible. Like, the whole team is just great. But twice a week, I get and even though I'm not near a Stoked, I still go through the email, the newsletter. It's beautifully put together. The timing is right. I don't know, and I've signed up, Wes, for probably
no, I'm the same.
6, 7, 8 maybe different dispensary emails. Nothing.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You complain about Meta, you complain about this, you complain about that, store coverings, window coverings, I agree, get rid of them. But you have an opportunity where these individuals are signing up for your VIP programs or whatever they might be. They give you an email, send them some fucking communication, even if it's just around specific holidays or something.
Forget cannabis. Like, this is retail marketing 101. Like
101. Increase your basket, increase your cart size. Like, there's so many, like, all it takes is one interest in one of those products to go, hey, I'm going to go visit Stoked today. Yep. May not even be close, but hey, look at all these products. Oh, wow, it's top of mind awareness. Where do you shop? Well, I shop at Stoked, right? Like, just a lost opportunity. It actually kind of pisses me off. It does piss me off. Right? Everyone's complaining they can't make money, they can't do anything, yet they're not marketing.
I'd be willing to bet too, and I think the thing that would probably frustrate me more is that these companies that aren't sending those emails out as retail are probably paying for the tools. They probably have a tool like a Klaviyo or Contact Monkey or whatever it is, right?
Something.
They probably have that tool. They're probably paying for it, and nothing's being done with it. It's just another.
Sad,
spend.
Man. It's sad. And I get it. There's an experience level there as well, but there's plenty of courses available on how to do this. There's fucking ChatGPT. There's DeepSeek
is the Chinese AI.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust that with a fucking 10-foot pole. There's no information I'm putting in there about anything. I'm sure I'm throwing the baby out with the bathwater here, but
I don't know. From what I've been reading, it's fairly open source. I know a Freedom of Information request was submitted by.
I've got two words. TikTok.
It was Italy this week to Chinese.
Italy?
Yeah, but yeah.
Okay.
Italy submitted one to China to understand or to DeepSeek to understand what data they're collecting and stuff like that. But,
okay. Well, I think only time will tell, but I don't know. ChatGPT, like, I do not want to support that platform either. Just with all the backstory and all the shit that's going on, and obviously there's 3 sides to every argument. Or
well, the DeepSeek thing is interesting because it's either if they were truly able to achieve what they achieved with $5.6 million versus the billions of dollars of investment that ChatGPT has gone through, that's utterly insane. I mean, I read a stat that it's quite possible
but they
that they did
their
it based
labor
on
costs are fucking pennies.
Well, I don't know about that, but what they do have in China versus us is they have, the last stat I read on this was that they have more honor students than the United States has students.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So their level of, and what they did with this was instead of going the brute force, method that OpenAI is doing on power, it's they're doing everything they can to optimize and make that code more efficient so that they can do more with less.
Yeah, that I love. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Like everything I'm hearing, and I've asked you about this as well, is the amount of power that it takes to run this AI. And now we're talking, Trump and administration talking, data centers in the US, and Polyev has put that even as part of his platform, which is data centers in Canada. We have affordable electricity, although I don't know if it's for the people actually using it to run their fridge, but at least for corporations, there's a lot of breaks. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say I think this is good in general because this is competition. This is a war in general on the war of AI and who's going to succeed with it. And I'm glad that there are multiple stakeholders here and that it's not just one. I would actually hate for it to be all OpenAI who dominates absolutely everything because
it's crazy.
That's not great for competition.
No,
it's not great
no.
for anyone, right?
No, not at all.
But so we'll see where it goes. But the fact that one announcement was able to wipe out billions and billions of market cap from multiple industries because it's like, hey, NVIDIA, you said you need to use these most powerful chips to get anything done with advancing AI. And then these guys come out.
It's like almost like when Musk launched SpaceX compared to NASA and the difference in the amount of spend on each side. Anyways, let's welcome our guests on. We've got Patrick Pagé and George Goulakos joining us from Great White North Growers today. Very much looking forward to that. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everyone. We're joined by George Goulakos and Patrick Pagé of Great White North Growers. Gentlemen, welcome to Legacies.
Oh, wow. I've been wanting to get on the show for so long, Tom. Thanks for having me. It's unbelievable.
Well, the invoice, the check you sent over really helped. So
that really helps. Thank you very much.
Did it clear? Did it clear?
Yeah, well, we haven't cashed it yet. We'll see. And I see, Patrick, you got the shirt I sent you.
Oh yeah, of course, matching.
We're twinning today. We've
perfect.
got. I've got the hat too. Where do they?
That's cool, man. That's a subtle one.
I got the hat. I apologize. I'm not wearing it. I usually mix it up. So
it's okay.
You know what's funny is so I've got a lot of hats, right? A lot of hats. So Plantlife, Ian Scott out in Edmonton, Alberta, he sent me this over. These came this week, right? Well, sorry, this one came before Christmas. This one just came. Where I get confused and sometimes fumble is I'll wear the wrong hat or shirt, and if we have a certain brand on, I'm very cognizant of that. I don't want to alienate any of the brands that come on. So I've got everything I need back here. But anyways, gents, thanks for joining. We've known each other for a while. Wanted to get you on the show. What's going on? First of all, because I'm older, how's the weather in good old Montreal today?
Pat, why don't you answer? You're up real early in the morning, so you see the day starting.
Yeah, I mean,
it's freezing.
It's pretty,
Is it freezing?
rough out here, I guess, this morning. There was a lot of snow.
There was a lot. Yeah, we've been getting it. I'm gonna have to snow blow later today. We'll get through the winter. Time's accelerating though, right? Like it seems like everything's just going crazy fast. But anyways, listen, been a big fan of Great White North Growers for quite some time. We'll get into understanding how you operate because you've got a house of brands. You work with a ton of different brands, but you also have your own brand and market with distribution. Let's go back, and I want to ask some questions even before Great White North became to be. George, you were a hockey guy.
Yeah, that seems so long ago.
It wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago. Who did you play for again?
I played for St. Lawrence University in upstate New York.
Yeah.
And I had a little kick at the can. I was drafted by the Canadians, so I tried out for the 78 team and 81 team.
Okay.
So, when you're my age, you have different stages of your life, and this is my third because I had a great career in broadcasting, as you know. And before that, it was hockey, and now it's cannabis. And it kind of keeps me going, and really appreciated this new industry. I just didn't realize, how really challenging it was from a lot of different areas.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think so. That's first of all, the Habs. I mean, legendary across Canada and throughout. One of the OGs. So you go from like you're playing hockey, you get into media. What the fuck? what possessed you to go? Yeah, I'm gonna get into cannabis now. What was it? Like, was this a lifelong passion for the plants and cannabis?
No,
Like,
no.
where did this come about?
I was a user. I mean, I love smoking cannabis. So I was a user. I mean, not a incredibly frequent user, but I was a user. And then when I left, when the industry kind of died, it was like, what do I do next? And it was funny because my partner Peter, I was sitting in front of him, and I said, I'm going to tell my grandchildren I missed the .com boom, I missed the sale boom, and now I'm going to have a third one. I'm going to tell them I missed the cannabis. So it kind of stimulated Peter to say, I didn't make anything in those two great industries that happened in our lifetimes that people, made tons of money and great opportunities. So he phoned me a couple of weeks later and said, George, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I have an application, and why don't you join me and we'll apply. And then at that point, we never looked back. But it's been real rock and roll-ish, especially after that first phase of cannabis failed miserably, and people lost tons of money. And it was very difficult after that. Difficult, but it started separating, this people that are in just to make the money, or selling their licenses to people that really want to build great companies and be there at the beginning of an industry,
Right.
Which is
Right.
exciting.
Yeah. So when was that application then? When did you guys originally
We
apply?
were application, I think 300. We got in 2018.
Yeah.
We sold our first bud in 2020, fall of 2020. As suits, all partners were what we call suits.
Yeah.
And of course, we're no different than all the other LPs who failed, thinking that they knew everything because they read it in the book. So we had our issues at the beginning that brought us to where we are now, where we were aeroponic growers because it looked good on paper.
Yeah.
And we had to pivot. And because we had our licenses, we started packaging for people. And we started really, doing a lot of collaborated work with them. And you've met me before, both you guys. I like to talk. I like to be, engaging with people. And so it resonated to a lot of people who were alone in these facilities outside of the island.
Yeah.
Felt like they were all alone. So when they came into Great White North, being the type of people, Peter, myself, and anyone else that's been in here, were we really there to help and to share what I like to say, misery loves company.
Yeah.
We're all in this together.
So you're not making it either am I. Let's two wrongs make a right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you get through things, and we got through things, and sure, certain guys told us that we need your facility. I mean, your logistics. We're waiting to get our license. Could you just launch us? And then once we get our license, we'll go on our own. So we've done that with some great companies, and other ones that have been to us from the beginning, that realize the importance of what we do, compliance, logistics, and how you can save by aggregating certain things, especially transport,
Right.
and packaging costs.
Yeah.
So they realize that, I don't need to worry about that because, we'll probably get into it later on, is the sales part of it, and, which is very challenging, and people didn't expect the cost that they needed to incur to really get their product national exposure.
That's really tough running it on your own. Like if, you've got a lot of these, we'll call them legacy operators in some cases that moved in, or those that just thought they could make a run of it. They can grow great weed, but then there's the other side of the business, right? And I'm not saying that that's not a business acumen requirement to set up a facility, manage your suppliers, get some product out the door. But then you're dealing with all of the stringent requirements put on, one, by the federal government at Health Canada level, then the provincial level. So now you get into, your packaging, your distribution, your sales, and understanding compliance, and that it's all fitting the bills. So you guys were able to fill that void early on in the industry. I mean, you're talking 2020, 21, right?
Yeah, and early on, and we have over 40 vendors qualified, like LPs qualified. We're in 10 provinces. We have approximately 30 LPs and micros we work with, all different situations. Some
Mhm.
don't have the possession licenses, so we're managing that. They're just running a brand. So we're really becoming, how should I say, experts
Yeah.
in different situations, different provinces, and it really is helpful. So we're growing with our clients.
Mhm.
As if a client needs to be in a market that we weren't in, it forces us to open up that market for
Right,
that one
right.
client, and allow us to open up, as I call, the floodgates
Yeah,
of
yeah.
opportunity. For us at Great White North, we look at our company, and we're building it out, to either, join someone out west or in another market that would appreciate all these distribution channels
Mhm.
that have been paved. I mean, the fact that we have, the best grower in Canada on the team, Pat, it
Yeah.
really gives us another revenue source that we always plan for, to have
Mhm.
enough cannabis to support our own SKUs
Yeah,
and
yeah.
our own Cannabis 2.0. We didn't want to be ever the biggest grower in the world. We wanted to just have enough that we can have not just that as a revenue stream, Cannabis 2.0 as a revenue stream, and of course the logistics that we fell into.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
fell into that, and it's a good business to be in.
Well, I definitely want to touch on, Canada's greatest grower. But I first want to understand, because I want to, how did you get Patrick, right? But first, I want to go back further. Pat, how did you come about the industry? What's your background in cultivation? Like, what led you into the legal side? Because the vast majority of individuals I talk with, or Wes and I talk with, that are exceptional growers, they have some time that they spent in the trenches in the legacy market. It doesn't mean they all have to be. I mean, I instructed a course at Kwantlen Polytechnic, and some of the growers that were in that program at the time, they weren't master growers. They came out of that program and they went to the School of Hard Knocks, right? So they joined, started on the cultivation team, worked their way up, worked their way up, worked their way up. But what's your background prior to entering the legal side?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been around cannabis for the majority of my life. It's always been something I kind of turn to. I enjoy consuming cannabis, whether it's medical or recreational. I mean, I'm not a doctor. We'll kind of just leave that up in the air. But yeah, I've always been around cannabis, but to kind of break that cycle, no, I don't actually have any legacy growing experience personally.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, it started out with like I used to cook professionally, and I really loved cooking. I probably wouldn't have given it up,
Yeah.
but cooking doesn't really pay the bills. I've always really loved cannabis. I've gotten into a little bit of house plants and this and that beforehand, and
Mm-hmm.
it was like, oh, okay, here's an opportunity where I can make a little bit more money. I can be around something I absolutely love being around, and I kind of believe that you can't really complain about something unless you're willing to do something about it. I
Right.
couldn't be one of those people in the early days just kind of sitting back and like complaining about legal weed or saying that the industry wasn't what it should be if I wasn't willing to get my hands dirty, so to speak, right?
Right. Right.
So around that time, got hired at Aurora, started as a trimmer and kind of just worked my way up.
Mm-hmm.
Did some trimming, ended up as a gardener, really did about every position in cultivation that you can imagine. Uh, Moved up from there to follow my buddy Alexandre Gauthier over into New Brunswick.
Yeah.
I did a little bit of work out there, had some personal things come up that forced me to move back to Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
And when I did that, I met the brothers at MTL Cannabis.
Okay.
Really, like, I knew some things about growing, and I was making a name for myself in the industry, but it was really, there was a big training that happened there. I got mentored really well by the Clem brothers as well as
Mm-hmm.
a few other growers in the Quebec scene, and really, that's what kind of took it off. From there, I wanted to do more. I wanted to learn more. I spent as much time as I possibly could learning about cannabis and really just applied that knowledge with the ultimate trial and error background, let's say, because
Yeah.
when you're
Well,
pushing,
there's certainly a lot of trial and error, right? Like I think even when I started out, my friend, who I'll call a master grower, taught me what I knew, and which is still mildly nothing. But I'd make a mistake, and the first thing you'd ask, he's like, "You were on Google, weren't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I was on Google. I went to Google, and they said I should do this, and I should do this." He's like, "Just stay the fuck away from Google. Focus on what I'm telling." Because I mean, the first crop I ever grew, it was like, we were hitting easily 2 pounds per light, right? We're using the old parabolics with, HID. There was no LEDs in my grow rooms, right? They were still, they were wonky science at the time. So anyway, so you spend some time with MTL. Obviously, we know Alexander. He's a legend, right? And some of the strains and cultivars that he's managed to put out, especially under Origine. Another great. It seems there's so many great cannabis companies in Quebec that we'd love to see expand. But so you spend time with the Clement brothers over at MTL, hone your skills, and then there's an introduction, I think, at some point. Hey, George? Introduction,
Yeah.
or like, hey,
And you're mentioning all the names.
you're talking drafting, right? Back to the days of the Habs, and hey, we're gonna draft Patrick Pagé. He's the next star.
It doesn't. It's at the end of the day, I look at it that the business, and we have to act good people in this industry and be honest. And I had a relationship with David Bowe because we had started via Kick together. And I always say he's my favorite Quebec grower off the island of Montreal. Just to let him know that. And the story comes about how I got Pat, or how we got Pat. We had gone through 3 growers not successfully. And I'm saying this because, in this business, if you're not humble and admit your mistakes, then you're either not seeing the mistakes or you're just bullshitting yourself. So, I got a call from Alex, and he says, "I have your next grower." And I said, "Great." And he says, "Okay, you're going to meet him in the next couple of weeks." And I'll never forget, it was a dark night in old Montreal, and we're at a party, and goes, "He's here today." And we go outside and have a joint, and all of a sudden I see Alex with Pat, and he's got his hood on, and he's a big tall guy like me, and it's dark. And they go, and Alex tells me, "You don't know this guy?" I go, "No, unfortunately, I'm not proud of it that I didn't know all the great growers in Quebec.
Yeah.
I was worried more about how we get our lights on and how we
Yeah.
get more financing,
Mhm.
and that's how I met Pat. And again, I don't even know where to begin on how Great White North, specifically 514, changed when Pat came in. One being his knowledge about the plant, but his whole disposition and his style, it just made this company a lot greater, and he knows that because I tell him that all the time.
Don't let it
But
go to your head, Patrick.
Ego's growing.
yeah, I just got, and part of what I need to do now at my age as being a leader here is be around here and learn more and more and be with the people and be with my employees. Because at the end of the day, I have a lot more experience than most people in my office just by age alone.
Yeah.
And I need to be mentored by them, and I need to mentor them, as well. So it's a two-way street.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm getting mentored every day by my staff.
That's a smart leader. That's a smart
Yeah,
leader, understanding that you learn the most from your teams and those that you work with. So so that dark night in old Montreal, I can picture, the cobblestone, the Love Hotel. I've stayed at the Love Hotel, my wife and I.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So what was his name? The guy that founded Guess Jeans.
That was George
Marciano, right? And so when we were there, he had just gone through his big divorce and bankruptcy. Now, what was interesting? Have you been to the Love Hotel?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God. So you've got to visit there. He has one of the most impressive art collections that you could ever imagine. And rather than them be included because the Love Hotel was kept separate from his bankruptcy. So what he
Right.
did was take all of his priceless artwork and put them throughout the hotel and then made themed rooms after these artists that they, I mean, he had everything in there,
Yeah.
everything. So what was interesting was, you know, late night, whatever, my wife and I out for dinner, we come back and there's this, you know, older gentleman, pulled back white hair. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not him. And the receptionist goes, yeah, that's him. He lives here. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like maybe part-time, but anyways, interesting story back from Montreal and the cobblestone. And, you know, it's
Actually, it
love
was
old Montreal.
a lawsuit against him by his employees.
Right. That's
It
right.
was a $450 million
Yeah. Just a tiny
loss.
one. Just a tiny one. Yeah.
But so at that point, you know, we met, and then Pat came to see our facility. Now,
Yeah.
it was kind of like our facility is not an MTL cannabis. It's not huge,
Mhm.
you know, but you know, it's got this, you know, the
It's got you.
thank you, but it's got what it takes for a guy that wants to put his own stamp
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
on something, and you know, the fact that, you know, after talking, you know, I'm pretty out in the open, and once you meet me once, you know, hopefully, you know, the second time you meet me, I'll be the same guy, and I'll
Right.
never rise to change. So the dynamics was good, and he joined us, and then from there, you know, he took control of our cultivation,
Mhm.
and like I said, you know, it's his rooms, and
Yeah.
we're here to serve him, you
So
know.
what was it, Pat, that impressed you with Great White that you're like, yeah, I could see myself here? Was it kind of a blank slate, figure out what needs to, were you still in aquaponics at the time? That's the question
No,
because
they
that'll
weren't.
scare people away.
They were not doing the aquaponic towers anymore. Really, it was kind of it was a lot of the people and a lot of the goals of what they wanted to do, a lot of what I wanted to do as well. While I was at MTL, it had gotten to a point where I basically sat at a desk 40 hours a week, and
Oh,
like if you've
yeah.
ever spent more than 20 minutes with me, you know I can't sit still. I like to be doing things. I like to be with the plants. It had gotten to a point where I had made myself pretty irrelevant, and I was kind of just doing paperwork and managing people. So
Mm,
at that point, I was looking for a new challenge.
yeah.
The cultivation here, they were doing a little bit of it, but not much was going on there, and it was just about one room, I think. And it was really just single tier, normal growing, nothing super crazy. But it was George and Peter, meeting them and knowing where they wanted to go. I really liked the idea of the Great White North, the packaging, distribution, the fact that like I know I won Canada's top grower this year, but in no stretch of the world do I think I'm the best grower or literally like the only grower who grows good weed. So I like working for a company where one, I can focus on producing beautiful craft cannabis and nice high quality cannabis that we can be really proud of. I
Hmm.
like that I can continue to mentor people to do things like I've been mentored, kind of in a pay it forward kind of way.
Yeah.
And I like that we're able to work with all of the other growers and make it a possibility that we can bring all of these other nice flower, nice hash, extracts, you name it. We're able to bring all this stuff to the market. So it was all of that combined that made it something that I really wanted to kind of be a part of and made it the next challenge for me, let's say.
Nice, nice. I know that for a lot of growers or cultivation leads will say when they join new companies, one of the things they ask is, "What's your portfolio of genetics? What are we dealing with here? What are we looking at?" Was that something that you had also assessed and went, "Yeah, we're gonna," because and I'm gonna get to this, which is the Amnesia haze. Hazes are notoriously a motherfucker to grow. Like I think anyone would agree, and I think even you would probably, even though you've got it dialed in. But did you look at the genetic library and go, okay, we've got stuff we can work with here, or you know what, guys, we got to scrap the seed bank. We're going to start over.
So, I mean, we have a big genetic library when it comes to seeds here at Great White North. So we do have a large pool to pull from. They were running an Amnesia haze when I was here. However, they hadn't popped all of the Amnesia haze seeds.
Hmm.
We decided that we wanted to test that out, but I wouldn't say it was a big motivating factor. Like, I think I think the biggest thing was the phase two, the being able to move forward and all of that, and being able to really be the big part in like designing, planning, and scaling all of that. It was really just a big challenge that I was excited to get a part of. Like, yeah, I
Yeah.
don't like when stuff is fully established and everything's running smoothly. It gets a little
That
boring.
could be boring.
I like chaos.
George, I'm sure keeps it very interesting. George and I chat quite often, and there's always something he's cooking up and trying to figure out, what are the next steps. George, what's the biggest challenge in this industry today? What do you see as the biggest challenge?
I mean, I think everyone will have some people have too much money, so it's not a challenge. So I think there's lots of challenges. Access to capital would be one. Finding good people to work with. Sometimes it's trial and error, and sometimes the error takes you right out of the business because it's so big.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that. It's, myself, I'm starting to kind of see, as I meet more people, you're starting to see, who you would want to do business with, or
Yeah.
who would want to merge with, or who would you want to take the next step with. So that's a big challenge. The when we talk about the not clarity of what people are smoking, the strain names, um, the fluctuation between labs, which I think has been kind of taken care of
Mm-hmm.
in the last 6 months, but the whole tightening up of the industry. But it's normal. It's a 5-year industry, and people got to understand this is going to be, it's going to mature in probably 40 years,
Yeah.
and then die out in 100, like all industries, where four guys are going to own everything.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's just the beginning. And people got to realize you got to be nimble. You got to be able to pivot. You can't go out there looking at data that's only 4 years old. That's changed. The base has changed the last 4 years with more stores or less stores, or legal market versus illegal market.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to be hands on.
Yeah.
I think my broadcast training, it would be probably the best training for for coming into this industry from being white collar, where it's regulated. I saw it in its peak.
Yeah.
It must be
But you
TV.
weren't friends with the CRTC?
Very friends with the CRTC, and every time we cried, they give us another half a minute, an
Of ad
hour,
space, yeah.
because they didn't want us to fail. And I try to explain that our Health Canada, our government, won't let us fail. And yeah, it's really hard now because of the excise and all these, but they're only going to tweak it for the better.
Right.
Because, it's Canadians' industry. It's not Great White North. It's their rules, their industry, so they cannot let it fail. So I'm optimistic that as this evolves, that the government's going to give us more and more breaks,
Mm-hmm.
because they can't let it fail.
Yeah.
I saw it in broadcasting. They couldn't let people go bankrupt. In this case, they let people go bankrupt, but
Yeah, but I think there's a reckoning time here, right? And I want to ask you about this as well. And Patrick, please weigh in. Is, you already mentioned it. Yeah, he was very young. We've talked about this. It's a young industry. You talked about the .com boom and some of these, like in those early days, there was, obviously regulators are important. They have to establish a framework. We're hard on Health Canada. We're hard on the OCS. We're hard on all of them, right? That's our job, right? From my seat and Wes's seat, that's our job. We need to call what we see so that we bring visibility to the areas that need to be challenged and potentially are creating pitfalls for some of these companies. But I mean, you have that experience where you've worked in, people don't realize, like the broadcast industry was highly regulated. I still remember going through ad school and doing media buying studies and going through understanding what you have to deal with and the intricacies of, placing ads in certain areas and what this means. And, you remember the whole debacle about, when commercial breaks would come on and the volumes would go up and the CRTC had to step in and say, no, but in the US, they never did that, right? So you have that experience in a very highly regulated industry. And most, again, they wouldn't look at it broadcast and go, what the fuck does broadcast have to do with cannabis? But you're right. But we're a young industry. And I
Yeah.
think, we've said this for a few times now, which is I've been hearing this because George, since 2017, but the lead up, I've been studying the industry, through 2014, the MMAR, the MMPR, the ACMPR, all the way to the Cannabis Act and Cannabis 2.0. We've said for a long time, other than the initial green rush, this is the year of M&A. This is the year of we've said that in 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23. Hell, everyone thought last year would be it. What we have seen is over the last 3 years, it's the year of bankruptcy, right? It's the year of CCAA. But for 2025, I think that you've got smarter business operators. There's still some snake oil salesmen out there, right? We know that,
Yeah.
or sales people, because it's not all men. But is this the year of reckoning where we see that opportunity for companies like Great White North, doors start to open more? Maybe you can, you have those established partnerships that you can start strengthening even more. But some of these companies that are kind of just kicking the ball, which is really just kicking the CCAA down the line a little bit, is that where we're going to see it? Like, do you think 2025 is that year of M&A?
Certainly, we saw some. We saw some recently. There were some purchases. There was a purchase in the cannabis.
Well, you've got Decibel and Agmetica.
yeah.
You've got
Yeah,
there's
so
a
you're
lot
seeing
going
that.
on. Yeah.
The reason it didn't happen in 2018 is when the two guys are fighting for them life. They owe money, and it's hard to do a merger with. You need to have real opportunities. I'm not
Right.
saying real cash and real money and real profitability, but you need the potential. You need the roads paved. You need this system to drive revenues.
Yeah.
Whether it's I talked to Pat a lot about our QA and why we have like 3 or 4 QAs, and I know our volume doesn't dictate it, but it's the volume from 30 different
Yeah.
LPs
That's a
that are
lot.
Korean and that need to be batched released and need to be vendor qualified, and but it's only going to bring us value at Great White North to have that in our system.
Yeah.
For us as we grow, or for someone that's looking for what we have, which is a paved road and a fine-tuned machine, different packaging. We get bulk cannabis here. We see tons of cannabis coming in. We're gonna hopefully in the next 6 months we'll be GACP. We might do our first export to Germany as a test.
Yeah.
Not giving up Canada.
Don't send away the Amnesia haze. What are you doing? You keep that in Canada.
I was about to say, not giving up our Canadian market.
Yeah.
We're not sending over anything if we could be used in Canada, even if we can make more money sending it to Europe. I've talked to Pat and Peter. We want to establish, our SKUs in Canada.
Yeah.
And if there's excess, because we all need money, we would send it out
Right.
and sell for it.
But isn't that's a really tough business decision, George, right? Like, because I obviously, I know a lot of operators, a lot of brands and companies and LPs and processors. Some have built their entire business model on export, right? I think, like Jeff Black, right?
Yeah.
And some of these other individuals. I just think through, like, if I can sell, here's the thing, right? Black market, dropping packs. I could get $2,400 for a pound, sometimes $2,700 for a pound. I could move more for less at the same time in bulk, right? But if I had the opportunity where, in my local market, I'm only going to get $1,500 per pound, and I can get $2,500 in another market that was going to, let's say, Maine. Sometimes it went to Maine. Why wouldn't I? Right? Like, are we being boxed in based on all the regs, all the excise tax, all the margins, the wholesale cost versus the MSRP to get forced to push product to other markets?
Listen, if you're like I believe, like, even though I'm not going to be here long term, but I
You got
believe
another 100
that
years.
we're building brands. We're not just selling cannabis.
Right.
We're building brands, and there's an IP. 514 is the area code of Montreal. And we want to be a proud Montreal company as well as a proud Canadian company.
Yeah.
We have a lot of Montrealers across Canada that are going to resonate for their old area code.
Yeah.
And as you say, we have some of the best growers, if not the best grower. It's in Quebec, whether it's Alex or Pat or some of the other guys, that are doing great product here in Quebec. So, unlike the black market where you're saying, I'm just going to go for that $1,000 more, what's the value of that brand?
Mm.
If you work to someone when it becomes a global economy, a global industry, to say, I've got 10 of the leading brands in the United States and I got 5 in Germany,
Yeah.
and now I got to go and get them in Canada. So it'll be more than just the fact that it's cannabis. It's that brand and how it resonates,
Yeah.
and how you can offer that to a potential guy, or it's part of your valuation.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not just
Do
a dollar.
do you see it as, so I get the brand IP, and we've seen, US companies have made their way into Canada, right? Which it's really just the brand, right? And I think Cookies
Yeah.
and Snoop, whatever, Dog Pounds, or whatever, the Houseplant and Seth Rogen made a try at it. Is there IP with a brand that can, because we've seen as of recent, certain like Ghost Drops and Aurora and some of these others have pushed some of their brands, not just the product, but their brands into the European market. Is there longevity for, like, I just don't see the uptick. I get the US to Canada cross border, Cookies has a huge name, Burner's big down there. I just don't see where, and it's no offense to John and Gene or, any of the Ghost Drops team, but Ghost Drops marketing, sure, it's decent, but is it going to resonate in a European market when the European market is predominantly medical, right? Like we saw that in the early days when we were just rolling medical, brands didn't mean much. It was the LP. What's the LP name attached to it? Aurora, Tilray, etc. Brands didn't really matter so much in the medical side. So do you see opportunity where 514, I mean, makes a lot of sense, right? It's the Montreal area code, those Montrealers that have moved and across Canada, they recognize it. Is there a potential in the future where 514 could have stay power in a European market?
Well, I think 420 has a brand there, Pat. You can
Yeah,
get. Why
no,
don't you talk to this?
I was gonna say the same thing. Like Lot 420, I think is a perfect example, and Stefan was actually talking about it, or Stefan, sorry, was talking about it in a Canna talk earlier this year, and it was kind of about how their brand Lot 420, and as much it is their LP name as well, but using that brand in Europe is getting them a lot of sales because these people in Europe, they don't know anything about most of the cannabis they're buying. Just like it was with us in the early days, you had to
Right.
kind of go on Reddit or whatever to get reviews that you could. There was various sites on the internet that you could find that stuff, and at least what Stefan was saying is that the Lot 420 brand, people Google it, people try to Reddit that stuff, and
Wow.
all they see is great reviews, right? So like naturally, if you've got to choose between a bunch of product and you don't really know what you're getting, and you see one product consistently gets amazing reviews in Canada, and then they're so good that they're able to also export their
Yeah.
product. I mean, I would buy it.
That's a
I'd
good
actually
point.
be willing to see
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah. I mean,
And
that's
just to add
that's the
on,
thing.
just that,
Research.
Tom, just to add on, like, and I'm not judging Ghost Drops or any of those American brands that came in here. The industry is too early to say a brand is going to take you, to the promised land
Right.
unless the product is consistent. The problem is they come in here, and a lot of these guys, and they give the licensing, and the people put whatever they want in there, and they figure, that because the name is Ghost Drops, or it becomes, any other. I mean, listen, we're working with a couple of, like, we're working with Tommy Chong's brand. And hopefully we'll bring him into Quebec. We'll know Friday. But for me, meeting Tommy and knowing who he is, he's kind of like a legend. And if he wants to come in Quebec, well, I'm not going to tell him
Yeah.
that I don't want to work with him. I'm going to say, well, do whatever you can,
Sure.
because there is that acknowledgement of Tommy,
Yeah.
within the culture of cannabis, and it
Right.
really
Right.
would be an honor to open up a SKU for him in Quebec.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well, and that I
yeah,
get, and I do
yeah.
understand Lot 420. I mean, but you brought up a good point, Patrick, which is in a new market, and like the European market, Australian market, like they're all very new in comparison to Canada, right? I'm gonna Google it. Like what's available, and I think in the again the early days as we were trying to figure out the medical side in Canada, everyone was predominantly drawn to these large companies because they were registering, medical air quote patients, members, right? We've changed and shifted the language on that. But I think that there's a challenge in that without them rolling rec, right? Because now you don't have visibility. Everything is online for the most part. I do understand that they have pharmacy and some clinics in certain regions, but yeah, it's interesting to think that, we've talked about this with various guests, is we don't always, you buy a box of cereal, right? You don't always, the brand and the box of cereal. And I don't know, Cocoa Puffs or whatever, right? And you've got that brand recognition. You've got a character, which we can't use in cannabis, which I get. I understand that. But you're not thinking about the wheat farmers. You're not thinking about the individuals that had to go through it. And I think that's kind of the toss up, which is cannabis with the culture and understanding, all of the effort it took from pheno hunting. And I'm not saying the entire industry understands that, because there's a very large growing subsect of the industry that will never care. They will never care who grew it, who trimmed it, what it was growing in, what medium, what lighting, what region. Like, you think far out, those individuals aren't going to care. Your true OGs, they're going to pay attention, right? And then that's where it's going to matter. So let me ask you this, and we'll bring it to genetics then, which is, if a brand is decent, that's one thing. And we know that brands will only have stay power and exist as long as the product is as good as it was, right? Which is complex in cannabis, because we're dealing with a biological asset that doesn't change form too much other than growing, drying, trimming, drying, curing, unless we get into cannabis 2.0 products. But how important is it to pay attention? Because Amnesia Haze is a very OG legacy cultivar, right? This is one that when people get, I think with Black Tuna and Tuna Kush and Pink Kush and some of these, George, if we go back, White Widows and Northern Lights and some of these older ones, right? But Amnesia Haze is one of those OGs, right? It's been well known. Do you pay attention? Because we're talking data. You touched on this, George, already, is data. Data is going to be as good as the source of the data, which we understand. And some do it very well, and others, they just bamboozle people and they think they've got good data. But is there any value in paying attention to what's still going? And I don't even know how you would do this nowadays, but paying attention to what's going on in the black market, what people are seeking, what they're searching, what they're trying to get their hands on. Because I remember, Smoker Farms, Jeff, they grow Master Kush, and I think they may be introducing a new strain, but Master Kush and Master Kush Ultra, I mean, back when I was like, that's what I looked at, yield, potency. I'm like, great, this is perfect. But is there any way to pay attention to what's going on in the black market? Because, we have intent to draw those black market consumers into the legal market. One way of doing that would be ensuring that the cultivars or strains they're used to sourcing are now available in this market. Is there a way to pay attention, and what is the value in paying attention to that?
I think that's like, so you can kind of gauge it, I guess, based on like social media and stuff, but like, you can follow trends and it'll definitely move a lot of weight, and it's definitely a good thing to do. But I mean, like with the Amnesia Haze, what we kind of decided to do here was not focus on what everybody else is doing and not kind of pull out the next, purple candy gas that needs to be on the market. We wanted to kind of set ourselves out, and we were looking at a bunch of classic strains. We were looking at some older stuff, and really what it came down to is if you look at legal places or places that have medical markets, I mean, the States, it's all really a lot of indicas. There's not a whole lot of sativas and stuff. And the ones that are, there's a few good hazes. And then when it comes to like, I would say Amsterdam is the best place to look. Bro, Amnesia Haze sells constantly. It is always popular. Everybody is like, not everybody's always buying it, but there's always an Amnesia Haze in a coffee shop.
It's going to be on a menu. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So
And Tom,
it just makes
sorry,
sense.
Pat, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that it just makes sense to go with a strain like that, and maybe kind of define our own lane.
to add on to what Pat's saying, again, I'm looking, in any new industry, you got to look at some analogies in different industry, and I really believe that we're like the alcohol industry in a lot of ways, from being illegal and becoming legal, and a lot of black market, you know. If I can have a strain and be known, as the best Amnesia in Canada, there'll be a place in the guy's cabinet for it.
Mm.
He might have all the flowery stuff, but there's always a Johnny Walker
Right,
or a
right.
Chivas or a Belvedere vodka. And that's really where, how I look at it is there's so much clutter around there. Bringing out I won't even go with a strain that is, a cross between a whole bunch of things. I don't mind bringing it out every Christmas and all that. But if you can have a solid sativa OG that's classic and true to what it's to be,
Mm-hmm.
and indica, and have that, and really hone the product so it's just hands up
Yeah.
the best, or no one's as good as it, or something like that. I think in the long run it'll pay a lot of dividends. Less chasing, more honing,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that guys will have different strains in their cabinet,
Yeah.
and when they want to smoke a haze, they go, oh, let me pull out this one
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's
I like
best.
that. That makes a lot of sense, George. And I think of that from the retail level as well, because, obviously pay to play models and data deals, and they exist. They're not going away, right? But at the same time, if you've got a winning cultivar that has stay power, that is renowned from legacy days, maybe those ones kind of slip through the goalie, get past the goaltender, eh? Potentially, because they're going to look at it and go, yeah, I need this on my shelf, and I don't need to pay a data deal to have it, potentially.
I want it. And, ultimately, we've talked about data deals, over me and you, Tom, and how I feel. I don't mind investing with my retailer in initiatives that will drive my product. But a data deal, I give a guy a check and I don't know what to do with what he's doing with my money, is a different thing.
Yeah.
Tell me, you're gonna put a poster, let's do stand-up cards. We're good with that.
Yeah.
So I realized that you need to do certain things to move your product. But I just wanted to add on to what Pat was saying about that, because I'm first of all, like, it's crazy all the different strains, and it's what's even crazier. What's in the can is usually not the strain that they're calling it.
Yeah, Wes and I were
So
talking about that. That's one of the things that really bothers me. I personally, and again, not everyone's the same, and I get it, but I want to be able to trace back what are the two parents. If you've got some newfangled, take me to the great grandparents. Even take me somewhere. But on that note, let me ask Patrick, what is your dream outside of the Amnesia? And I know you guys have a genetic library. What's your dream? Without complication, don't worry. Let's say you could pull it off. It doesn't matter. What is your dream cultivar that you would want to put on the market? I don't know if you and George have discussed this yet or not, but if you could put one out and go, besides Amnesia, this is the one. This is the next one that Great White will be known for.
Yeah, I mean, we joke about it a lot, and I think we both know what it's gonna be, as long as we can,
We get a Legacies preview. Is it a
We need to
exclusive?
find the right seed there, and we haven't R&D'd any of this yet, so this is just hopeful. But in a perfect world, I would really like to come out with like a true OG Kush, like true OG Kush would be nice.
Okay.
Either that or like, I remember getting some blue cheese back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Used to just completely rank up an entire apartment. Like, you'd
Yeah.
open a Sevens in a 3.5 apartment, and the whole thing reeked. I mean, I'd like to get one of those too.
Yeah.
It's really a toss up between those.
It's really tough, right? Because you look at, as a grower and someone that's going to have to pheno hunt, it's what is the end product, but also, you're considering so many factors on what are the inputs into this, right? Some require more nutrients, some require different lighting, some require different mediums. Like, how are we going to be successful with a certain cultivar? There must be a million things that go through your head trying to decide that. Personally, if I could throw one out there for you guys just to, satisfy my own needs, I'd love to see a really good Maui Wowie. There's a couple in the market. They hit okay, but and it doesn't have to be, well, let's face it, a Maui Wowie, you're sitting 17, maybe 20, 21%. You're not getting into your high 30s, which I do not need personally. But if you ever want to, I'll help source the seeds, and you can pheno hunt them, and I'll even roll up the sleeves and come and help maybe potentially. What gets you most excited about the industry? I mean, we talk challenges a lot, but where do you see, and George, you touched on this, but from both your perspectives, where do you see, the biggest opportunities, but also what gets you the most excited? What's still getting you out of bed?
The fact that we're legally allowed to grow cannabis for a living. Like, honestly, it's the same thing that it's been since day one. I still can't believe that this is my job and this is what I get to do as many hours a
That's
week as I
crazy, eh?
do it.
Do you have any friends left that don't know what you do, and when you tell them what you do, they're like, what the fuck?
I mean, at this point, not really. I mean, obviously, with Canada's top grower coming out at the end of last year, I don't think there's a single person I know personally that doesn't know I work in cannabis now. Stuff really blew up, but like, no, it's amazing, and I mean, I still get cracks here and there. My parents think I should maybe get a real job or something like
You
that,
should be
but
a lawyer.
it is what it is, you know. It's a beautiful thing to get to do every day, and I don't know. It's a great thing. The amount of times somebody walks up to me and says they've tried one of my products and they loved it, or they had an exceptional experience. Like, for me, that's it. You
Yeah,
know, it's why I
that's
feel
got to be
about cooking.
gratifying. Yeah. Outside you smell like weed. You smell like weed. George, what about you? I mean, in social circles, not to date you, but you've had a lot of career experience. Individuals at your age, some of them may look, and go, what the fuck are you doing? What are you thinking? Like, why would you leave broadcast, and decide to go into cannabis? Like,
Well, first of all, broadcast when I left wasn't what I knew broadcast was about. I was a local affiliate of CTV, and what they were wanting me to do specifically with I was in charge of sales and marketing, and how they wanted to cut everything, knowing that to me that I couldn't do it. It wasn't good for our company, and that's why a lot of the affiliates have been closed or a shell of what they used to be.
yeah.
And I wasn't going to be the one to dismantle that company. So when I look at that, I was thinking while Pat was answering, because again, you know, I know we're almost there. This was a warehouse with no walls or anything, and for me, my dream would, which is getting there, where the company becomes bigger than any one individual.
Mm.
We've created something that will last, will have longevity, beyond George and Peter, two of the founders, and then hopefully beyond Pat in the next few years. But something that we created from nothing, and that we went through all these hardships. But the 514 will be a cannabis brand in Quebec for a long time, and that would be gratifying for me. And then
Yeah.
hopefully get a little bit of, how should I say it, a little pressure laid off. As Pat knows, I'm an intense guy. I'm here early in the morning. I want to know everything. I'm curious, and kind of get that a little bit off my back.
Yeah.
And slowly, our team is getting more experienced, and I see it. I see a good 25 for us.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What let's talk about the 514 right now. So where are you currently distributed, and what are the products that you have in market right now?
Well, different provinces have different. We're in different provinces. Alberta will have our Old Port hash. They also have a Fletcher's outdoor product from 514. In Manitoba, we have our hashes and our vapes, our Villeray vapes. All our products are named after either an area in Quebec, in Montreal, or a street. And so we have We have a SKU of indica joints and a SKU of sativa joints under the 514. And we have a combo, which is very popular, where guys will buy 10, 5 indicas and 5 sativas.
Yeah.
We have a beautiful biscotti vape that people are starting to resonate for in Toronto. And, hopefully in the next product call, we'll have a couple of more of our hashes. And hopefully our 3.5 will be accepted
Yeah.
in Ontario, so they can really enjoy the bud, not just the joints.
Yeah. Yeah.
In Quebec, we have a 30-pack, which is
And
really
why is
cool.
that 30-pack not in Ontario?
We're pitching it. We're pitching it.
Jeez. Like that is when you revealed that to me, I'm like, why the fuck aren't everyone putting these out? Like,
Yeah,
forget
it's just
the 3
easy.
joints, forget the 5
Yeah.
joints, the 10 joints. Okay, now we're getting somewhere, but
Yeah.
30 is where you want to be.
Well, you also got to look at it from our point of view. To pack 5 joints in a tube, the tube is the same tube as you use to pack 1 joint.
Right.
So in our case, we put them in drums, 30 joints in these jars, and it's 1 jar.
Yeah.
So all the savings of that cost go into,
Well, and
to
you're
the
saving the
consumer.
environments. I think that's one of the
And,
biggest
yeah.
issues that we have. And you guys must deal with this a lot because you're doing the co-pack and doing a bunch of this.
Yeah.
But like where have we ever put any thought into sustainability outside, George and team going, yeah, these are great
Yeah.
pre-rolls. Let's put 30 in a jar. Like no one, like, I love what Aveo's doing and, they're on the other side of it from the supply, but we need to fix the over packaging in this industry.
That goes with the regulation, right? So, I mean, child-proof, recyclable containers are expensive.
Yeah.
Or it's hard to find. So I think it all goes back to what I said earlier, when they start reviewing the Cannabis Act and they start tweaking after we all start crying, saying, we need more help, you have us restricted. And they're going to look at things like that. I mean, certainly environment is always going to be important, but it's not just exclusive to cannabis. It's in
No, it's literally everything. Yeah, take away our plastic bags at the grocery store, but literally
Yeah.
everything you buy is in plastic.
Yeah.
It's
So,
craziness.
it's just things like that. I go back to what I said. It's 5-year-old industry. I mean,
Right.
what do we expect? Everything to be buttoned down.
Mhm.
And as I'm speaking, I'm thinking about Europe again. I wanted to make a point before, is we don't allow any imports in Canada, for cannabis. It's not allowed.
Yeah.
How long will it be before countries start looking at us and saying we
That's
don't
a
need
good
to
point.
import?
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
I don't know.
Uh,
And people
sorry
people
to
could talk
interrupt you,
about, yeah.
but
uh,
I agree with you on that one, but I kind of don't. Find me a country in
yeah.
Europe that can produce at the cost per gram that we can produce here in Quebec, and then
Indoor, no
maybe
question.
we might have an issue. For
Yeah.
Yeah.
extracts and pharmaceuticals and like oils and tinctures and stuff like that, I completely agree.
Yeah.
But when it comes to flour, you're going to be hard pressed in most, if not all of Europe to produce quality consumable
And
flour indoor.
is that mostly due to the electricity costs that like the
Electricity and
utilities costs, I
water
guess?
is
Yeah.
a big part of it. It depends on where you go.
Sure.
Every country in Europe has a different thing, but like there's a lot of
Like
rules
Germany is
on
expensive to
how you can
produce.
use water, how much wastewater you can have,
Right.
how
Right.
expensive it is to consume that water, not to mention just sheer cost of square footage.
Yeah.
In a lot of these places is a lot more for like
Yeah.
agricultural
So
reasons.
then you're looking at they would look at more modern techniques, which aren't going to necessarily have the yield because they have to be as conservative as possible on not only hydro, right, but also water, nutrient supply, obviously. And we know that Europe and especially certain regions within Europe have very tight control over certain. So it affects your IPM. What nutrients can you use, and right, your fertigation. Yeah, that's a really good
Or
point. I
just
never really
like
thought of it that way.
Germany as a whole, there's a limit on how much power Germany is allowed to consume, right? So
Right.
like,
Right. Yeah.
how
Well, I
much
always
pot
thought
can they
about
really
Yeah, and
produce,
again, I'm not
right?
arguing. I wouldn't argue that point either. Growing indoors in Europe, like I look at their cannabis market now in Europe, it's like they're smoking like hemp with Delta 9 on it, it's sprayed on it, and
Yeah.
they think you're gangsters. It's like if they don't know any better, if they don't know any better, they're gonna think that outdoor stuff is really cool,
Yeah.
beautifully grown in Greece,
Right.
and they're smoking it. And if you don't show them what indoor is, unfortunately, they all been exposed to it
Yeah. Yeah.
right now, and they're gonna want it. So either they're gonna import it from Canada, or it's gonna be brought over in the black market.
Yeah.
So they're gonna probably allow it in medical.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
But
mean, to Patrick's point, though, it's they're very focused on, at least most of the regions that I've worked with and dealt with. They're not flower first, right? So we're not going to see a lot of 7, 14, or whichever formats they get into, or pre-rolls necessarily. You're going to see a lot of your cannabis 2.0 products, especially in ingestibles, transdermals, vapes. Certain regions, certain countries will allow that, but then that takes a massive amount of supply. Right. And while you can get beautiful full spectrum outdoor cannabis, you're dealing with a lot of other factors. Not all makes it to the trim room, right? Start dealing with botrytis and other issues. But I've always thought about that as well. Would there be a turning tide? I don't think it's during my lifetime necessarily, but let's say, 30, 40, 50 years into the future, maybe not even that long, but I'd love to see. I worked really closely with the St. Vincent government. And they've got their own challenges within the island itself and in that region, just supply. How do they handle the local farmers and making sure that their supply comes into their own market? But I would have loved to see, or still love to see, where you got all these different, let's call it St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Barbados, right? Barbados isn't really going to grow that much, but they're able to import, or we can import into Canada, let's call it island strains, right? So some OG legacy, we don't even call it legacy, just land race strains that they've been growing in the island. It's not going to be indoor. It's not going to be Amnesia haze. It's not going to be the potency necessarily, but it's that vibe, right? Where you can say it's from the islands. This is Lucian hash, or this is Vincentian hash or flower. I don't know. Is that ever going to happen? Based on that conversation we're having, like, are Health Canada ever going to go, fuck our own producers and processors? We're going to open the borders and start allowing cannabis from other countries.
It'll be like chicken quotas one day, or like eggs, where they say this country can only import X amount of eggs, or chickens. It'll be a protected industry,
right?
Because you can't compete when someone's in Barbados. And you're Canada growing outdoor,
Yeah.
and in Barbados, they'll bring it in for a penny a gram. Or, in fact, we're talking to someone in our Barbados right now, and who wants. He told me, he's got his licenses in Barbados, and all his products he requested were cannabis 2.0.
Okay.
Cream, vape.
Yeah.
And we're just.
The Prime Minister Mia is very focused on the medical side, right? So it's funny because when I was working with St. Vincent and the MCA, the Medicinal Cannabis Authority, I was reviewing other tabled legislation for Barbados and some of Dominica and a bunch of the others. They had carbon. So St. Vincent looked at our regs and wrote most of their regs based on that. But then the neighboring islands, Barbados especially, they looked at St. Vincent and went, okay, well, we're just going to carbon copy these. And to the point where they actually forgot to remove the Medical Cannabis Authority of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, right? And so you see that, but Barbados we've known for a long time. First of all, indoor is not going to happen, right? It's just not. For Barbados, they're not going to be a producing island. They will be very medically focused. Obviously, they've got some, high-end universities for medical. There'll be research, but they're going to be very focused on that. So, and we've said this for a long time, which is there's pitchers and there's backstops, right? Or your catchers, receivers. Everyone wants to be a pitcher. Everyone wants to export. But until we see a certain opportunity where, Barbados is importing a massive amount, then I think things will start to change eventually.
Oh yeah, I mean, like the as countries start legalizing and maturing and all that, them too, they'll have changes, they'll have their tweaks.
Yeah.
It's almost, you don't want to be all in anywhere, unless you're really comfortable with the country you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I go back to Canada. I don't like it, but at least we kind of know. I mean, maybe not in Toronto if you're buying off a legal guy or illegal guy.
Sure.
But most markets have been cleaned out. The kind of retail stores that are illegal.
Yeah.
Most.
Well,
He's
it's
coming
like that's
back.
whack-a-mole, George. They just keep popping up. They're shut one down, and
I
another comes
know.
up, two come up, three come up.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And well, how much of that is taking away from legal producers and their opportunity to sell, and is it driven by people that couldn't get into the governments and
Yeah.
they have pot and they're selling it?
Or they just didn't want to. I mean, I still have connections that are like, fuck, I am glad I did not make my way into the regulated
Right.
market, right?
Yeah.
And who's to blame them? But there's reward and persistence, and I think that's a testament to where yourself and team and Peter, you all sit.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's probably been plenty of days you're like, oh my God, another day of this. I don't know if I can handle it. But then you persevere and you get up the next day and you slay it. You just keep going and
You
going.
grind it.
Yeah.
Just grind. You grind it in a sense, and it's not like you're grinding in some environment that's so bad. It's the cannabis business. I mean, you find some fun times,
Yeah.
and you laugh, and you see interesting people. But as you scratch that away, it's still a business,
Then
right?
you get down to the brass tacks. It's business
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like you're sitting around with a bunch of, actuaries that are, that have no personality.
Yeah.
As it's going, this is where I look at my broadcast and everything's a new change. Every client has a new issue. This guy didn't get paid by his distributor.
Right.
This guy, got a recall. Everyone has an issue. Mold on cannabis.
Yeah.
We're obviously we see a lot of cannabis, and we're fortunate we have one of our employees. He's like a rain. We call him the rain man for cannabis. When we do our bud sorting, he always finds the mold.
Yeah.
And we'll phone the client up and say you have some mold on your cannabis.
Yeah.
And he goes, no way. And they come in, and this guy says, here it is.
Right.
When we're looking at the Great White North, we really want it to be, Tom, we've talked a lot about it, where you send your cannabis to Great White North, it gets packed, it gets shipped, it gets sold, it gets processed, but you're always kind of going to have some value out of that cannabis.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not there yet but we're getting, that's where we want to be.
Every day is one step closer.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
I see that Patrick was going all max headroom, and I don't know how many of our audience
Yeah, I
remember
saw
that.
that
So I think
too.
his camera's died. Patrick, maybe we can still hear you. Let's do a test on that.
Hello, yeah. Can
He's
you
still there.
hear me?
All right. Well, we'll figure this out. But listen, guys, it's been an incredible, I don't know, hour and a half. Just love what you're doing at Great White North. George, you and I have been connected for quite some time. I'm glad that we were finally able to get you on Legacies. We're here to support as much as we can. We want to see the success. 514 obviously is doing quite well. But all the brands that you're representing and helping drive to market, it's necessary. And I know it can be frustrating. So the
Yeah.
perseverance, thank you.
But when you tell me, hey, Clem Co, I love that product.
Oh, yeah.
Or the Grease Monkey, it's fantastic. It really makes me feel good because, as much as we, we're doing 514 and all that, it makes me really feel good when you can open up a market for someone
Mhm.
and all of a sudden they're doing well in there. And then I look forward to working with a lot of Ontario brands as Quebec
Yeah.
starts expanding.
Yeah. Well, it
being
seems
the
like
ones to
there's
bring
a
it-
lot of movement where Quebec is now moving and shifting into other markets. And we've seen that. We've said this multiple times, Wes and I, where it seems like Quebec really supports their own producer processors. Like that's one area that you guys have done very well in that province. But I think, if you could do me a favor, it's get the 30 pack OCS. If you're listening, I know that you listen once in a while. Let's get that approved because one, we can cut down on waste, but also dollar cost averaging, it just makes sense. Number two is a personal request. And I think I had asked this of Jennifer when we spoke with them at Clem Co, which is get a 28 gram SKU to Ontario, please. That would
A
be
big night.
beautiful. I
big
honestly,
night.
like I get the 3.5 gram SKUs. I understand why they exist. Hell, I understand why there's some where they're 1 gram. For me personally, I would do all away with that. Stick to quarters, half ounces and ounces, but more importantly, I think the half ounce and ounce that's where it's at.
you can't put like 1 gram joint in of good cannabis, package it, label it, and
It's
sell it for a
silliness.
decent
Yeah.
price. You know, it just doesn't make
Taster
sense.
packs, I think, are where, I don't know if this is possible, but here's a business idea for you. Maybe you could take all the brands that you represent, take all the different pre-rolls, put them in some sort of sample pack. Hey, Wes, a sample pack of,
We
you've
do
got
love
Great White
branding.
North.
514, you've got
Yeah.
Clem Co, you've got them
Yeah.
all in there. You want to do 1 grammers? That's how you do
Yeah.
1 grammers.
We're thinking of doing that next Christmas.
Oh, that would
maybe
be a
doing
beautiful thing.
a collaboration of 12 days, but you get to see some of our
Yeah.
partners want to jump in. I mean, I'm not going to use I saw the packaging. I never saw a Mylar bag this big, and it was just a lot of waste.
Yeah.
But there got to be a way we can do it where it looks good and it's efficient. Wes, does Wes ever talk? Like we've been talking.
With multiple guests and stuff like that, sometimes I just stick in the background and there's plenty of conversation happening. So if I can't,
yeah, for sure.
if I
you
can't
know.
fill in, I'll just let you guys.
Wes always comes out. He doesn't say much, but when he does, it's the most profound thing.
That for sure.
He'll ask the best question. It takes all my 60 minutes of jibber jabberish and bullshit that I spew, and he'll come out with one thing and trump everything I've said for 60 minutes.
Yeah, no. Listen, I love your show. I think I'm a big fan of you guys. Just know that you're always welcome in the Great White North. You need an office. We don't have a lot of office space, but there's a boardroom. I get up, whatever you need from us. And we hope to see you here soon. And
Yeah.
as the weather gets better.
Wes and I have been
come
talking
on.
about a Montreal tour. We've got some comped Flair Airlines. Maybe we can take a risk on that airline. Maybe we won't have to, Wes, we won't travel with luggage.
Yeah.
We'll make our way to Quebec, and we'll hit up some of our. I mean, honestly, some of our faves are from Quebec. There's you guys. There's Origine.
Yeah.
There's Danny, and there's just so many great operators in Quebec.
Quebecers do business a certain way. We have it's very personal. Like I'm a Quebecer, and when I do business in Toronto, it's personal with me. And you're dealing with the company, but at the end of the day, there's someone that's responsible. And I think that's the best assurance you can give anyone you do business with, that you're accessible. No matter what goes on,
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
phone me up and we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
I'm not running away, and that's really where fundamentals in old business
Yeah.
will become very important
Oh,
in this
yeah.
business,
Yeah.
if not already, because a
agree.
lot of people, I mean, I've been hearing horror stories. A lot of clients are phoning me up and they want to come to the Great White North, and I ask them why, why, and they say, well, we're not getting paid. I said, well, that's not a really hard sell for me to tell you to come to Great White North.
Yeah. If that's
it's
the
a
only only reason you want to come
Yeah.
here, that's the easy one. That's like
Yeah,
we'll
that's
pay
easy,
you.
man.
Yeah.
We pay you, and it was like, really? Yeah, really.
Yeah, it's happening.
But-
It's happening a lot, and this is one of the fundamentals and the reasons why some of these companies are going under, right? Like you're already net. God, in some cases 90, right? But 45, you dial that down, and some of these pick pack processors, they're not necessarily paying the bills, and they're just shifting money around. It's a shell game, right?
You're right,
So-
and they got to pay the CRA, and
Yeah.
they don't pay the CRA, or they pay it with the client's money.
Yeah.
And it just becomes like you want to move, but you don't want to move too quick, and you don't want to bite off more than you can
Right.
chew.
Right.
And then in this business, a month can make a difference.
Mhm.
You could lose 100 grand 1 month and make 300.
It's like being on the cruise ships with the casino. It's the same thing.
Well, all we need is some love for Ontario.
There you go.
And like guys like yourself, Pat producing the beautiful products, and we'll take the time it takes.
Yeah.
I'm glad you asked us about the Amnesia, because we've had discussions about that analogy about everyone has a Johnny Walker or a Belvedere. They might have fruity different things,
Yeah.
in their liquor cabinet. But when you say, just give me a scotch, he goes,
Your
feeling
scotch is
pulled
your
up,
Amnesia
yeah.
haze, everyone. There you go.
So that's the way
Yeah.
we're looking at it as we grow, because we're limited in space. But
Yeah. Well,
but
continue.
through our partners, there's so much access to cannabis.
Oh yeah.
That we can always take our brand and do a collaboration with our
Right,
partner,
right.
and then all of a sudden we got a tutti frutti thing, and people
Yeah. Just no
will
White
be-
Claws. Just don't put any White Claws out of market. There's enough of that shit.
Yeah, like
You don't want to be
yeah.
clean and sober, man?
No clean and sober. I don't mind functional drinks and beverages, but White Claws, I draw the line at. So, anyways, gents, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on Legacies. Thanks so much for joining us. We look
Thank you
forward
so
to
much.
all the progress that you're making. Patrick, I'm sorry we lost your camera. I think your computer's overheating. Legacies is a hot seat sometimes.
That's
Anyways.
it. I mean, I think you guys have the prettier faces, so I think people really want to look at you guys anyways. I'm just here for moral
the lighting
support,
does a
you
lot.
know?
The lighting does a lot.
Yeah, the lighting helps. You should see me in daylight. No. Anyways, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining Legacies. We'll be catching up soon.
Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks, Wes. Get your shirt from
He'll
Tom.
get it. I got a whole.
Bogart
Every time I see him, I drop off a whole box of stuff. So, anyways, we appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. Keep on doing the great work, man.
Good things happen in Montreal.
Including Clem Co. Clem Co.
Yeah, Clem Co. I haven't had any Clem Co in a while. They're not Montreal. They're close to Montreal, just outside of Montreal. Let's just say Quebec. Good things happen in Quebec. Their 514 products they're phenomenal. And I don't know if you remember this. So in that big jar, the 30 pre-rolled jar, is George had his own personal stash when we were at I think it was
Exec Summit?
the retailer summit. It was a retail. Oh, it might have been. He's probably always got them. But I'm like, why the fuck isn't this available in Ontario? He's like, we're working on it. We're working on it. That's tough. I'd love to see them all like that. 14, 28 gram SKUs.
Yeah, like you said, the packaging alone is insane when I get for one or two joints at a time. It's just fucking
And
insane.
the sampling events aren't helping matters by any means. Is there another way that you can? I mean, if you could invent some sort of like pre-roll condom.
Yeah. To me, it's like offer a 1/2 pack and then that 30 pack, because I don't necessarily want to buy a 30 pack if I'm not sure if I'm going to like them, right? So I need that smaller SKU.
Ooh, what if you could
to try them?
So sample this, like those colognes, you get like 20 samples or 10
Yeah,
samples.
the Shoppers
and then
Drug
you can
Mart model.
redeem it.
Yeah.
Well, that would be fucking cool, eh?
Yeah. Multi-pack and then select which one. You've already paid for it up front.
Like, we giving away business ideas here. I wonder if that's even possible.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? That'd be a wiki. So you pay for an ounce, you get all these samples, and then you redeem it. Run that by Lisa at Stoke.
I was going to say, not even just on the brand. Can that be done at the retail level? I wonder. That's an interesting question. Could a retail store just offer that themselves?
I don't see why they couldn't. I mean, you're kind of just prepaying. It's no different than click and collect in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really helping our packaging issue because then you're getting a pre-roll and,
Right.
But it's still kind of cool, right? Talk about sampling and, maybe some cool analytics and data that come out of that.
Yeah, because that's your Christmas gift ideas. That's your send them a pack of that. I don't know what you like. I don't know what you like.
Don't
Here's
put this in
5
the
from-
episode.
Yeah. I don't know what you like. Here's 5 from Stoked, and go back to Stoked and pick the one you want.
The what do they call the Stoked sample pack? Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they can pull it off. Let's see. I'd love to see that happen. And if it did, it came from us. It came from us. This idea came from us.
That's it.
Yeah, we'll get it out there. Anyways, another great episode. Nice to connect with George and Patrick. We got to get to Quebec, man.
A lot of places.
So many of our favorites are there. Shouldn't say that the Maritimes aren't either, but then there's BC, and then there's Alberta. And we got to get everywhere. But I think we definitely need to get to Quebec. We got to swing by Mendo, right? See what's going on there. We've got to swing by Origine and Great White. Who else? God, there's so many.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
Jubilee. We got to go see
Jubilee, yeah.
Alex. Oh my God. Okay, let's make it a point. Maybe not when all the snow and cold is happening though. I got enough of that shit.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Midsummer.
all right, my friend. Well, let's wrap it up. We thank you for joining Legacies. We'll see you next week right here. Don't forget to subscribe. Subscriptions help, apparently,
They do.
with algorithms.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you.